Hi, my name is Dr. Kasha Kynes. I'm CEO and founder of EBV Global Institute, and welcome to the training on a vitamin E supplementation for EBV. Let's get started. So, the exciting thing is that vitamin E made it to my 8 top stellar superstars. So we always use vitamin E in our core protocol in our EBV recovery program because it's such a superstar. So I'm going to talk about EBV within the context of vitamin E, but also we're going to go outside of EBV, kind of cast a bigger vision of how effective that vitamin is. So first things first, there was a huge study on thousands of Americans and Haines, and that was over 20 years ago, which looked at different vitamins and minerals in the stages of American population. And interestingly, 93% of that group studied didn't meet estimated average requirements of vitamin E. And what does that mean? So out of each 100 in a group, only 7 would have enough vitamin E. But the problem is that the estimated average requirements are really mediocre. This is just the intake level of a nutrient at which the needs of 50% of populations are met. So very, very mediocre to me. And so because the soil continues to be depleted, because our food chain is worse than it was over 20 years ago, I suspect that our vitamin E level, the status of vitamin E, is even worse. And why is it important? It's extremely important. Let me tell you why. I often speak about oxidative stress, oxidation, and the massive amounts of oxidation that EBV produces, which is partly responsible for the achiness, for the brain fog, for the malaise, for the chronic fatigue. It's the oxidative stress. And if you look at research, it's the free radical damage, the early aging, it's the damage to your cells. And so with that, vitamin E is very potent because it's a fat soluble vitamin and it offers particular, very specific protection against the damage of fatty acids in your body. So let me zoom out a little bit. Think about your cell, like a little ball, and it's covered by cell membrane, okay? And inside is a little nucleus. So we used to believe that the nucleus is the brain of the cell, but Dr. Lipton was able to remove the nucleus and the cell will perform, continue to work and live in some capacity for another 2 months, if I remember. But if you break the cell membrane, the cell will die. And so the conclusion is that the cell membrane is actually the brain of your cell. And why is it relevant to our conversation today? Just bear with me. Because fatty acids are part of the membrane. Omega-3, for example, is an essential nutrient that we also need to supplement in diet or supplements because we don't make it. But every cell membrane requires omega-3 in its structure for integrity and strength. So now you need protection of the delicate fatty acids like omega-3. It's very delicate. It's very susceptible to oxidation and free radical damage. It is not a stable fat. So vitamin E is one of those beautiful things that is right there, right next to that omega-3 protecting it. It's very relevant because we talk about LDL oxidation, the unhealthy cholesterol. This is all related to fat. So I always say you have to be very, very picky about which fats, which oils you use. and it translates into the cellular level, literally. So this is so important. Omega-3 is also in the brain. So imagine vitamin E is so important. So that's casting a big net over vitamin E in every cell of your body, because every cell requires omega-3, for example. Now let's zoom into vitamin E and the EBV in particular. We know that vitamin E decreases the viral replication because it decreases NF-kappa B. And NF-kappa B, I keep talking about again and again, it keeps coming up. It's an inflammatory protein that the body makes. The more junk food a person consumes, the more NF-kappa B you produce, actually. So there was a study of a fast food breakfast that increased NF-kappa B for 2 hours by 150%. And why is this relevant? Because NF-kappa B is a protein that EBV likes to hijack to replicate itself. The more you have of NF-kappa B, the more replication you're inducing or inviting. So we have many agents that can decrease NF-kappa B, but there it is. Vitamin E is one of them. And also, like some other nutrients like selenium, we have studies showing that when you are deficient in vitamin E, you can cause a relatively benign virus to become more virulent. Why is it relevant? Because EBV is an opportunistic virus. We pretty much all carry it. I do too. But it will strike where there is an opportunity, and dropping that vitamin E status is one of those opportunities. And like I said, over 20 years ago, 93% of US population tested didn't have even a mediocre requirement of vitamin E met. It's probably worse now. So what does that mean? You know, if you have a multi, there may be some vitamin E in that. If you don't have a multi, just 400 IU of vitamin E would be really, really beneficial. So there was a study also showing when you took infected B cells, so your immune cells, they were infected with EBV. So vitamin E, when it was introduced, completely inhibited oncogene LMP1. And this is a protein that is related to EBV, and oncogenic means cancer producing. So that's really something, you know, the little vitamin E. And of course, vitamin E protects the body from LDL, the lousy, unhealthy cholesterol, you know, the free radical damage, protects from heart disease. So we already talked about that somehow, you know, it's all woven together. So the interesting thing about vitamin E is some of my core A supplements that we use in our core protocol, some of them we use in high dosages, really aggressive, but not vitamin E. You don't want to play with it. You don't want to over supplement. I would say, you know, just stay on 400 IU because more is not better. And one thing you want to keep in mind is, you know, like, you know, the supplement industry is a huge industry. There's a lot of junk out there. So you want to look at the kind of vitamin E that you want to purchase. We have clean vitamin E on our shop.ebvhealth.com. But you're looking at what kind it is, what form it is. So you want D-alpha tocopherol. Think about D as doing, and you don't want DL alpha tocopherol. Think about DL as dislike. Maybe it helps. So D alpha tocopherol, not DL alpha tocopherol, because that's synthetic, that's not healthy. And look for formulation that has mixed tocopherols in the formulation. That would be the best. And it's a fat-soluble vitamin, so you want to take it with food. We only use the double dose for like initial 2 weeks in a protocol, and then we drop to 400 IU. And you have to be careful with vitamin E when you're on any medications, especially if there's any bleeding disorders. Let me see. Let me look at my cheat sheet. What was there? You want to be cautious with omeprazole, like Prilosec. You want to be cautious with anticoagulants, antiplatelet drugs, history of heart disease or stroke, diabetes. And it may worsen clotting problems with people whose levels of vitamin K are too low. And also, if you take K and E together, you may decrease effectiveness of your vitamin K. Let me see. You don't want to oversupplement because there are some studies indicated that it may increase risk of prostate cancer when oversupplementing. And do not exceed 400 IU if you have heart disease and diabetes. So there we go. A little vitamin E. I hope that helps you see the value of it. And again, free radical damage, oxidative stress. This is why people feel awful. This is a damage to your cells. And imagine those cells having the brain, so the most important part of it in the cell membrane, which requires essential fatty acids, omega-3, which needs to be protected from damage. And that's where vitamin E comes in as well. I hope it's helpful, and I'll see you in the next training.